You probably assume medicine is a modern invention, a victory of white coats and sterile labs. You look at a pill bottle and see a technological marvel. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of history. Medicine wasn't invented, it was discovered. The first pharmaceutical intervention didn't happen in a hospital. It happened in the mud, thousands of years before the invention of the wheel. We tend to think our ancestors were helpless against pain, merely gritting their teeth until they died young. That is a lie. The fossil record reveals that early humans were the original biohackers. They didn't have textbooks, but they had a heavy-duty, chemistry-altering survival strategy that we still rely on today. To understand why we started medicating, you have to understand the trap early humans were stuck in: pain. Biologically, pain is just data. A nerve detects damage and screams "stop" to the brain. It's necessary, but it has a fatal flaw. If a hunter broke a leg 50,000 years ago, the pain signal wouldn't shut off. It kept the body in a permanent state of panic, flooding the system with cortisol and suppressing the immune system exactly when it was needed most. To survive, humans needed a way to hack this circuit. They needed a chemical key to turn the volume down. But before we understood chemistry, we likely just copied the experts. This is the prehistory of medicine, known as Zoopharmacognosy. In Tanzania, biologists have watched chimpanzees swallow the rough, bristly leaves of the Aspilia plant. They don't chew them, they fold them like an accordion and swallow them whole. It turns out the microscopic hooks on the leaves act like Velcro in the gut, physically snagging and dragging out parasitic worms. This was mechanical medicine, using texture to clean the body long before we understood drugs. The real leap, however, happened when we moved from leaves to dirt. This challenges our definition of medicine entirely. We find red ochre, an iron-rich clay, processed and stored in caves dating back 100,000 years. Historians used to think it was just paint, but chemically that doesn't add up. Iron oxide is an effective antiseptic. When mixed with animal fat, it becomes a medical paste that acts as a sunscreen, an insect repellent, and a coagulant. In a world without antibiotics, a simple scrape could mean gangrene and death. Smearing this red clay on a wound wasn't a ritual, it was a sterile barrier against the environment. From there, the chemistry got scarier and more sophisticated. In the El Cedrón cave in Spain, researchers analyzed the dental plaque of a Neanderthal who lived roughly 50,000 years ago. This individual had a nasty dental abscess. Trapped in his teeth were molecular traces of poplar bark, which contains salicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin. Even more incredible, they found traces of Penicillium mold. This suggests that tens of thousands of years before Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin in a lab, a Neanderthal was likely consuming a primitive antibiotic to stay alive. By the Copper Age, this wasn't just guesswork, it was a specific prescription. Look at Ötzi the Iceman, preserved in the Alps around 3300 BC. Ötzi was a walking pathology report, suffering from Lyme disease and whipworms. But tied to his belt, he carried the Birch Polypore fungus. Modern analysis confirms this fungus contains agaric acid, a compound specifically toxic to the parasites living in his gut. He wasn't just carrying a mushroom, he was carrying a calculated dosage. But the heavy hitter of ancient medicine, the one that shifted humanity from mere survival to actual pain management, was the opium poppy. The Sumerians cultivated this plant on a massive scale. The reason it became the cornerstone of ancient medicine is a supreme evolutionary coincidence. The poppy produces morphine, a molecule with a shape nearly identical to your body's natural endorphins. It acts as a chemical skeleton key, fitting perfectly into the receptors in your brain and blocking pain signals. The plant evolved these chemicals to poison insects. Humans just happen to have the lock that fit the key. We often arrogantly assume we've replaced this primitive knowledge, but we actually rely on it. In the 1970s, scientist Tu Youyou saved millions of lives from malaria by revisiting a 4th century Chinese handbook. She found that modern boiling methods were destroying the medicine in sweet wormwood. By following the ancient instructions to use cold water, she isolated artemisinin and won a Nobel Prize. The ancients didn't know the molecular weight of these compounds, but they knew what worked. The most dangerous assumption we make is that natural means safe. It doesn't. Nature is not a nurse. Nature is a chemist trying to kill you. plants produce toxins to survive. The first doctors were risk managers navigating a minefield, learning the hard way that the difference between a poison and a cure is purely the dosage. When you take a pill today, you are the beneficiary of millions of dangerous experiments conducted by your ancestors. Calmly, we have better packaging now, but the transaction is the same. We are using the Earth's chemistry to hack our own biology. If you enjoy content that respects your intelligence and digs into the real mechanisms of history, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm you want more deep dives. Now, I have a question for you. If you were transported back to 10,000 BC and could bring only one modern medical item, knowing the supply is limited, what would it be? Antibiotics? Painkillers? Antiseptics? Let me know your survival strategy in the comments.